Trump just won the election and will become the next president of the United States. How will his policy affect the housing market? And should you buy a house right now or wait until Trump is officially sworn in and push out his policies in 2025? In this video, let's dive right into the campaign promises from Donald Trump and his team. How his foreign policies on tariffs will impact housing supplies, what will happen to the home prices when many who work in the construction industry are Hispanic immigrants and get pushed out, and why a particular group of investors right now are jumping into the market and basically pushing the mortgage rate higher due to the Republican election night sweep. The mortgage rate topic is a big one, and that will have the most immediate impact on whether or not you should buy a home right now. So be sure to stick around for that one. Before we dive right into the issues, if this is your first time here, my name is Zhang. I am a Texas realtor and a mortgage loan officer. I have a network of over 85,000 real estate agents across the United States. If you ever need a referral to a trusted real estate expert in your area or have mortgage needs, feel free to contact me using the link in the description box down below. And please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Before we dive right into what is likely going to happen, let's talk about the current issues for home buyers. One of the biggest challenges that we home buyers have been facing was housing affordability. According to data from the National Association of Realtors, housing affordability index fell to its worst level in October of 2023. But now the good news is that as the mortgage rate started to drop from its peak, along with home prices remaining steady, with some areas starting to fall, housing affordability index has gone up drastically in 2024. An index above 100 is considered affordable, while below that is considered the opposite. So we're sitting at a much better spot than before. Two important factors when considering housing affordability are the home prices and the mortgage rate. Let's first discuss how the home prices could be affected under Donald Trump's administration. First, let's talk about the foreign policies. During his campaign, Donald Trump ran on the topic of tariffs, basically promising to impose heavy tariffs on other nations so America can get a better trade deal. This means that for everything that home builders need for building a home, lumber, steel, concrete, and other essential materials, the cost could rise significantly. The United States already imports approximately 32% of its building materials from other countries. Many of them are from Asia, if you know the country I'm talking about. Tariffs on those imported goods would make it way more expensive for home builders to source materials from abroad, which means that it could lead to a higher construction cost. And guess what happens at the end? As the result, these increased costs will likely be passed on to home buyers in the form of higher home prices. There is a cost to building in America, and it's not cheap. It's worth noting that the previous tariffs imposed during Donald Trump's first administration term led to a significant price increase in construction materials. For example, the National Association of Home Builders estimated that the lumber tariffs alone added $24,000 to home prices during 2021. With the proposed new and increased tariffs, this effect could be even more pronounced in the coming years. So overall, it's likely that we'll see new home prices continue to climb up with the cost of doing business going up for home builders. But that's not all. The second thing we need to talk about is due to Donald Trump's immigration policy, the labor market for home builders will become much more difficult. As a realtor, I run around to construction sites a lot. It's not surprising that under the hot Texas sun, the construction job isn't really sought after by Americans. I see a lot more Hispanics building homes whenever I'm on site in a new community. With Trump's immigration policy, the labor market for home builders is expected to face significant challenges. That means the construction industry that's heavily relied on immigrant workers, mostly Hispanic, who make up the substantial portion of that workforce. As of 2022, the Hispanic made up about 32% of the construction workforce, and that's the reported number. So that's a significant increase from 23% in 2010. This reliance on immigrant labor is even more pronounced in certain states, with Hispanic workers accounting to over 50% of the entire construction workforce. And those areas are New Mexico, Texas, California, and Nevada. Trump's proposed whole of government strategy aimed at deporting up to 20 million individuals has raised serious concern among homebuilders and industry experts. Many people in the construction sector think this is a terrible plan and are worried about what would happen to the industry when they can't find or hire affordable construction crews. The National Association of Home Builders has voiced their concerns about the potential consequences of this very aggressive type of immigration policy where it's just basically deporting a lot of the immigrants into this country. With the construction industry already facing a shortage of nearly 400,000 workers, any further reduction in the available workforce could mean that there will be even more existing labor shortage. This situation is particularly critical given that only 3% of young American adults express interest in the construction business. So you can already imagine if the immigrants are deported from this country, who will be there to pick up the slacks? It's unlikely it will be Americans. The impact of these policies could extend beyond just labor availability. It may lead to increased wages because these companies have to compete for a much smaller group of workers, potentially driving up construction costs and consequently home prices. And this could really further complicate efforts in addressing our nation's biggest problem in housing, which is housing shortage, estimated at 4 million homes as of mid 2023. So far, things are not looking good for homebuyers in the housing market under the new Trump administration. But there is a positive from the supply side. During his campaign, Trump promised to increase land availability by releasing surplus federal lands for housing development, a proposal that has gained bipartisan support. The federal government owns about 28% of U.S. land, and the administration plans to open up building on those vacant and surplus parcels near the existing development zones and infrastructures. This means that when those land are released, we can start building on those land as soon as possible. This initiative aims to address the nation's housing shortage, which Freddie Mac estimates at nearly 4 million units. The success of this policy will depend on the specifics and the location of the released land and the efficiency in meeting the demand for affordable housing, and if the Trump administration can carry this out successfully. I personally have some confidence. I really think this will fix the core issue of the housing affordability crisis. We are facing it from the supply side, and this is the only way to ensure that we don't see a runaway inflation issue like we did during the pandemic. So overall, from the supply side perspective, we have two negatives from Donald Trump's policy in tariffs and in the immigration, construction, and construction labor market, and one positive from potentially having more access to the land development, which allows us to increase supply and build more homes. Areas like California, Nevada, Arizona, where there's a lot of federal land, this could mean homes there will be much more affordable in the future. Since we just finished talking about the supply side of things, let's discuss the topic of mortgage rate, which covers the demand side of the housing market. Although the president doesn't have direct power to control the mortgage rate, their policy will have an indirect impact on the bond. And here's a very surprising thing. Even with the Federal Reserve cutting interest rate for the past two meetings, surprisingly, mortgage rates have gone up since the first cut in September of this year. Currently, it's sitting around 6.75 for a 30-year mortgage. Now, why is that? Why is it despite the Federal Reserve lowering the Fed funds rate, the mortgage rate climbing higher? The answer is due to the 10-year Treasury yield in the bond market. The 10-year Treasury yield is decided by the market of investors who constantly buying and selling the 10-year Treasury bond. Typically, there is a strong correlation between the 10-year Treasury yield and the mortgage rate, with the latter usually about 1.5 to 2%, we usually call 1.8% higher than the 10-year Treasury yield. However, recently the data showed that the spread has widened significantly. A lot of reasons behind that. Some of them is that bond investors are very cautious following the Federal Reserve's rate cuts. They are unsure about the economic status of our country and the most recent presidential election and the proposed policies, and all of that inflation concerns really drove up the 10-year yield. Some investors are worried that since the Republicans have won the presidency, they have won the Senate and the House, basically a clean sweep, you will create more of a deficit with poor fiscal policies being passed to gain popularity and win votes. So they're selling of the US Treasury bills. Investors are saying we're not buying US debt because we don't think the United States is being physically responsible. And people are calling these investors the bond vigilantes. As Bankrate pointed out, falling interest rates doesn't necessarily mean low interest rate. This situation underscores the complex moving pieces of economic factors affecting the housing market, highlighting that while the Fed's action influence the overall interest rate environment, mortgage rates are more directly tied to the bond market and the broader economic perceptions. This means that some of my mortgage clients who saw the rates fell from 7.8 to 6.25 not so long ago now are seeing the rates climb back up to 6.75 and miss their refinance opportunity. If you're sitting with rates above 7.5, whenever there's a drop in rates, you need to take advantage of it since we have so much uncertainty in the market. I think that under the Donald Trump administration, we'll see a lot of volatility in the mortgage rates and the home prices. I have a strong suspicion that if the economy remains steady, due to the new administration's policies on housing, we'll see home prices go up in most of the areas in the short term. But in the longer term, if the economy still holds up, and if more housing supplies come onto the market due to more land becoming available and the housing market deregulation by home builders, I think that areas like California and Nevada will see a drop in housing prices since they had already seen so much supply constraint for the past few decades. That will really change things over there. If you're looking for a trusted real estate agent in your area that can help you navigate the process of home buying, feel free to use the link down below to access my network of 85,000 realtors across the world. If you're looking for a loan officer to refinance or purchase a home, use the link down below to see what the rates are in your area. Remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.